Well, on that note, let's call this meeting to order. 6 o'clock. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. So tonight we have call a special meeting to order at 6 o'clock to discuss further on our superintendent search. And before we get started, I'm going to do a roll call, make sure our board members are here. So Director Koo.
Hey, good evening.
All right, Director Jeffries.
Yes, I'm here.
Director Stauffer.
Yes, all ready and accounted for.
All right, and Director Pickens.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
All right, and Superintendent Prine.
Here.
All righty. Okay.
Let's find the mute button.
Yeah, let me see if I have better luck with that. I struggled with that last meeting we had. So, all right. With that said, if you could all join me in our Pledge of Allegiance to get us started. Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so we are still, this meeting is in virtual mode, and we'll be having some discussions on future meetings with new OPMA rules upcoming in the future. So we no comments at this time. Please have your mics muted and video disabled if not speaking, and a reminder that this meeting is being recorded. And our vision and mission statement: our community inspires and prepares each student to thrive. And in connection with our community, the Sequim School District empowers staff to inspire hope and provide flexible, innovative learning opportunities in a safe and respectful environment so each student thrives. And the acknowledgement of the land we stand on. The Sequim School District administrative and school buildings sit on the ancestral land of the S'Klallam people. While the S'Klallam traditionally come from one nation, history has led to the formation of three sovereign S'Klallam tribal governments. The Lower Elwha S'Klallam tribe located in Port Angeles, the Jamestown S'Klallam tribe located in Sequim, and Port Gamble S'Klallam tribe located in Kingston, Washington. The district's primary partnership is with the Jamestown S'Klallam tribe. Today, the tribe and district share a partnership that includes official consultation on program and funding changes that may directly affect American Indian and Alaska Native students, as well as holistic service planning for students to remain successful in their educational journey. Okay, so the purpose of today's meeting is, as we all know, we are currently in process with superintendent search. And we have with us today the search firm Hank Harris from Human Capital that'll be participating with us a little bit today. But before we kind of get into that, I really would like to start off with just a timeline and a reminder, to the board of where we've been over the last 5-6 months and what's brought us to the point that we are today. So if we look back in the fall, at that point, we as a board were in the process of starting to do an evaluation on Superintendent Clark, and Superintendent Clark at that time had also expressed some interest in staying on board with us for potentially another year. So we were looking at that and discussing that and doing the evaluation at that time, and then unfortunately we ended up with a complaint and investigation that took Dr. Clark out for a couple of months, and then at that point we couldn't make any decisions because things were investigation was in process. Nothing could be done at that time. And then at the beginning of the new year, Dr. Clark had resigned. So that kind of answered that part of that question. So then we, as a board, said, okay, well, we have to go out for a superintendent search, and we interviewed three extremely good superintendent search firms, and we made a choice with Hank Harris and his group, and we feel like that is an extremely good choice. We've been, I personally have had a lot of positive communication, and just the process that we've been going through to this point, the professionalism with their group has been tremendous. With that said, during some conversations, there's a few things that came out of some conversations with Hank, just regarding, where we're at from a timeline standpoint. We are at the end of February right now, pushing March. And, some of the questions that we had asked, and I know Director Jeffries had asked this kind of at our last meeting as well, is where do we stand from a timeline, and how does that look from the the pool that we could be looking at, and just some other things that have arisen and gone on within the district as well. So I've asked Hank to join us tonight, and maybe share some of his thoughts on that topic, and so we can get that perspective to all of us, because we've had a brief conversation, or Eric and Hank and have had a conversation, but we've not had this conversation with the full board. So I thought it was important for the full board and others to kind of hear this. So Hank, the floor is yours. And you're muted. Yep.
Apologies. I trust you can hear me now. Sorry about that. Good to be back with you, board. Thanks for inviting me. So a little bit on the timeline, so we are on pace with the timeline that we've established, that I feel generally comfortable with. But, in this work, every week counts. And as we move into March, every week matters. So you might not be surprised to know that I pay very careful attention to searches that are going on throughout the region and throughout the country. And if you do a quick Google search on Superintendent Search, you will find no shortage of districts that are already in phases of the search that are beyond or further along than SQUIM. They might have started in December or January. So I am certainly mindful that as people are thinking or will be thinking about coming to your communities, some of those folks are also thinking about going to other communities. And certainly folks of high talent are in high demand. This is true every year. And I certainly do searches that begin in late February. But this year is a very competitive year for reasons that might just be obvious to everybody. There's a lot of folks who, after this year, say, you know what, it's been a good career. I'm ready to hang it up after this most difficult year. And so it is a very competitive marketplace right now. We see more searches, I think, right now, both in Washington and Oregon, where I do most of my work. There are certainly talented folks out there that are seeking superintendencies. As we move forward into March and April, a couple other things are just important to know with respect to this. One is, and we haven't really begun our engagement meetings yet. We're scheduled, and we will be beginning our engagement meetings this week. Thursday and Friday, we'll really begin our dive into learning about SQUIM. But one of the things I've picked up just in the early parts of the process, that SQUIM may very well be a district that would be best served by someone who has superintendent experience. And that particular group of individuals, folks who are currently sitting in superintendencies, that group of folks starts to pull out of searches in the not too distant future, right? So if you're a sitting superintendent of a district and you care deeply about your district and you're doing really good work in your district, you might be start to feel uncomfortable announcing to your school board in late April, early May, oh, I've taken another job. It's hard on a district. Now, not every superintendent will feel they can't. Some superintendents have very, very strong deputies, and those superintendents oftentimes feel like, you know what, I can still leave my district in a really good place. But you can probably assume that as we move farther into March and April and certainly beginning of May, folks who are seasoned and who are experienced superintendents may either decide they can't really leave their district with that little notice, or because they're highly talented, they may have already taken position elsewhere. So it is certainly something to consider for the board. The last piece about it, I know I'm not saying anything that folks don't already know. The recent history of Sequim School District does have some challenges that also a wise, thoughtful superintendent candidate is going to want to just be really thoughtful about, right? So people are going to want to come to Sequim and know that they are going to be here for the long haul, and then they'll have the support of the board for the long term. And because there were some hiccups this year, I'll use that word, the proximity to where we are in the search right now to those events that happened also might have an impact on the pool. I can't be clairvoyant. I can't tell you what the pool is going to look like a few weeks down the line when we start to bring in applicant files. I just want to share with you that these are some of the things that the board ought to be thinking about as we move forward in this process. I hope that Board Chair, was that sort of what you were looking for? Is there any particular questions?
No, I don't. I don't have anything. That pretty much covers, the discussion that we had earlier as well. So I don't know if any of the other board members have any questions regarding that at this time. I'm not seeing Jim, Director Stoffer, go ahead.
Yes, thank Hank. Appreciate the update and outlook and presentation of all that we're facing, and so really appreciate that analysis. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, no specific questions, but I just want to thank Hank for having this discussion with us. This is such an important decision, and I appreciate the perspective and your expertise on the matter. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Eric. And I think the board, we've made it pretty clear that our goal in this process, and a lot of this will be coming out the next week, as Hank has mentioned as well, with the conversations with district members and staff and some community and parents and everything, that and the board, that we will, our goal is to find an extremely highly qualified, experienced superintendent that is ready to come in and and just move us to the next level that we've been sorely missing for several years. So I think this is really important perspective to look at as we're trying to make this decision. So any other questions or thoughts before I kind of move to the next step here? All right, thank you, Hank.
Yeah, you bet.
So now with that said, in the midst of this process that we've been going through over the last couple weeks, in the last month, we selected or moved Dr. Prine into from a acting superintendent into an interim superintendent, and during that time frame, we got a call and had a conversation. Director Pickens and I had a conversation with Dr. Prine, and she had, stated at that time that she could have the capacity to potentially stick around for another year if and help move things along. And Dr. Prine, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if since the whole board particularly hasn't heard that conversation, maybe you could share with us a little bit, just some of that.
Yes, I'm happy to. So as we were working on our projects, some of them are longer term than others. And I just felt to stop at the end of June would set the district starting over again with those projects. And one of those projects is working with the mediator with the high school. That's a long-term commitment. And that was one that, I just felt like I had started that work. I would like to at least get the work as much completed as we could. And I felt like 16 months was a nice amount of time to work on that portion. And there were some other things there were some other projects that we had started that all of a sudden I just thought, golly, if I could just have one more year, then we could hand it over to a superintendent and hopefully have some of the projects that we were working on all tied up neatly with a bow, and we could hand it off to the next superintendent who would be there for a long time and take it to the next level. So that was the conversation that we had. And I just asked the board if they needed me to step in and do that, I was happy to do that. But if they needed me to leave at the end of June, I was happy to do that as well. I just want to do what was best for the district. But I have to tell you, since I've been here, it has been a seamless process in my humble opinion, and we've worked well together. So I just felt like we could accomplish some things with me here for about another year. So that was the conversation that we had.
Thank you, Dr. Prime, for sharing that as well. And so, as we put a couple of all these pieces kind of together and we look forward to what is the best option and opportunity for the district at this point, as this conversation has kind of gone through over the last couple of weeks, we have solicited some of the thoughts of some of the staff within the district, ranging from cabinet to administrative staff to the union leaders as well, and their thoughts on working with Dr. Prine and all. So all been very positive and everything. So we've been talking about this, thinking about this. What do we do? And so tonight we're here to kind of discuss that. So my question kind of to the board is, we have the plan at this point moving forward with Hank and the group is we're posting a job on the 26th. Do we think that at this point it's going to bring the best candidates? And as Hank said, he can't be clairvoyant. He doesn't know specifically. We could get a ton of people, or we could potentially not. And then we have some other opportunities in front of us. Do we look at that down the road a little bit? Continue with the processes Hank has got laid out at this point, and come up with. So, Director Koo, I'm not sure. I think your hand went up first. I've got a bunch of them. So, Director Koo, I'll defer to you first.
That sounds great. Thank you. And obviously, I've been aware of this since last week when you briefed me individually on Dr. Prine's willingness to do this. I've reflected a lot on it and tried to be mindful of kind of my initial response. I'll be candid. I've been extremely impressed with Jane and your work in the district. We haven't really laid a task list on you, other than, we've got some challenges. We're still trying to navigate through COVID, but I've had a very favorable impression of the work that's been done to date. I've thought a lot about the timing of the hiring process, and really it mirrors a lot of what Hank said. I'm not an HR professional, so it was reaffirming to hear what some of my concerns reiterated back in terms of the timing. Again, I look at COVID. I don't want to lose sight of the fact that SQUIM's been on the national radar recently, and not for favorable things. And that could have a souring effect on the applicant pool. That's not fair to the district. We did nothing to contribute to that. But we have enough on our plate and things within the locus of our control here at the district that, as Jane put it, I think a little more time is needed to get out of the woods. I just know that even the transition within my own household of getting students back into in-person has not been the smoothest, and that's not the district's fault, but that's just social and emotional schisms caused by everything that's been going on this year. So this is a long-winded way of saying that I've reflected on this significantly. I really appreciate the feedback we were fortunate to get in executive session from our leadership groups and their thoughts and concerns about a path forward, and really feel good about extending our timeline with Jane, not only with Jane, but also with the hiring process for our next superintendent, and really setting them up for success, long-term success, which is something our district and our community so desperately needs. So I'm looking forward to hearing thoughts from others tonight and going from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. We'll go to Director Stoffer next.
Yes, I make a motion that we offer Dr. Prine a contract through the next year.
Thank you. We have a motion on the table. Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Thank you. Now, with that said, thank you, Jim. We have a motion and a second. We can move on with discussion. Director Pickens, you want to?
Sure.
Chime in next.
Yeah. So obviously the one of the goals is that we have a long-term superintendent in place. That, you know, it's not an ideal situation necessarily to every couple of years be switching superintendent. I would ideally want to have somebody that's going to be here for a long term. I'm thinking of, you know, a period of more than 5 years, but maybe even up to 8 years. I think that provides for a healthy district, and establishes that long-term commitment, and those forms those relationships with our staff and our community as well. Given the circumstances, though, I'm in favor of extending the search itself, and in turn also extending Dr. Prine's contract simultaneously, so that we are still just as committed to having that comprehensive superintendent search, but instead of being at the sort of the tail end, if you will, of where most districts are, I would like to. We're about as early as you get with having that search firm selected, and starting that search. Now, obviously, job postings and stuff, I'm sure will be dated out accordingly. So it's not as if we'll be, you know, listing that job, and I'll certainly rely on Hank's expertise as to how to proceed. But I've been very impressed with Dr. Prine thus far, and I think she has excellent points when she talks about the work that still needs to be accomplished. And I would also agree with my colleague Director Koo regarding some of the other concerns about the fact that we've been in the national spotlight, and the further that we can get away from that, I think that it doesn't represent our community as it should. I hesitate to say what things are going to look like in the fall, but I'd be cautiously optimistic that it'll be different right now. And this is a long-winded way of saying that my priority is that we have every opportunity to select an excellent candidate for a long-term fit for our district, a candidate that is going to be the quality candidate that the community deserves, the students deserve, staff deserve. And I think at this point in time, we have an excellent person in place to get us to that point. And I would support the motion that Director Stoffer made. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Pickens. Director Jeffries.
I'll just add on a little bit. I agree. My original concern when I expressed the timeline concern a week or so ago was the search for an outstanding superintendent to take the SQUIM schools to the next level. And I felt the time crunch because of all the excellent story, the way Brandino kind of wove the story of how we got to this point. That we got kind of in put ourselves in a time crunch. I assume in all this, a couple things. First of all, what we're talking about is extending the contract to the end of June 2022 for Jane, which I'm in favor of. And I'm assuming also that Hank will start his process right now as described, and that now it's going to be a little bit longer timeline, which I'm sure he'll come up with. And hopefully we will now have the time to do the proper search to find the very best school board candidate or school board superintendent that we can find, and that we can maybe get that announcement in early spring and be ready, spring of 2022, and be ready to move on to great things, because there's some great things going on in the schools right now that I want to see continued and improved. And I really hope we can turn the district over to the new superintendent in really pretty good shape. And I don't think we can do that right now. I'm kind of worried about where the board is, where the school system is, where the teachers, the kids, you know, the whole community is this has been a tough year for everybody. So, yeah, I'm in favor of the motion made. And I was personally pretty excited when Jane considered staying on for another year, because I think, in my opinion, she's doing an excellent job. And I've had experiences with maybe 9 or 10 superintendents maybe in my teaching career. And she's about the best I've worked with. So, so I'm looking forward to the next year and a half as we go through this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Back to you, Jim.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate the comments from my colleagues. And if I need to clarify my motion, I can, but it would be to offer Jane a contract through June of 22, and then for our superintendent search firm, Hank, there to continue with their work. And then now, how as Director Jeffries articulated there, to present us with a slate of most excellent superintendents that we can have that discussion more into the fall type thing, and then we would be ready to announce it in the spring. I had a meet with Superintendent Prine when this was a discussion, and I met with her personally because I wanted to hear directly her thoughts, and I appreciate that input and the dedication that I see that she will offer, and the work that Dr. Prine has done since October has just been tremendous to get us on a path moving forward. And I'll just, if we could clone her and keep her longer, I would go with that. But there's also the other life. And so I'm in favor and will be voting in support of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Pickens.
Hi, thank you. I know I've already spoken on the matter. This is more of a process question, and maybe if Dr. Prine can weigh in on this too. where we don't actually have the contract, like it's not listed as an agenda item. I just want to make sure we're proceeding with this correctly and as we should. Is there is proceeding in this way where we're voting on it prior to the actual contract being attached with based on the agenda and whatnot? Are we still in good territory there?
What I would recommend, and Brandino, you can jump, or excuse me, President Gibson, you can jump in. I would recommend that you approve the contract and the extension next Monday night at the regular board meeting. We put the contract on the agenda. I think you could probably approve tonight extending my contract, but I think you need to approve the contract in another meeting. If you want it at the same time, you could do it Monday night.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, that would be my thoughts. Exactly that. And part of this too is just based on, the timeline, because if we went in a different direction or didn't make this choice, then again, Hank would be posting the job starting Friday. So that would be yeah. And I did speak with Greg Lynch, so our regional superintendent, on this topic as well, just to make sure that we were following guidelines and all, and that falls within the same kind of advice and protocol that he had provided as well. So,
great. All right.
If this was a direction that we chose to go, but just making sure that we were following procedures. But good question. Thanks, Eric, for bringing that up.
Yep.
Director Jeffries.
Yeah, before we proceed on this, Hank, do you have any comments about what we're proposing to do and extending the timeline in your services?
Nope. You're muted, sir. Still muted there, Hank. There you go.
How about now?
Yeah, we got you.
I'm a rookie at this, it looks like. I apologize.
No.
To your question, look, I think it's always best to be at the front end of a hiring season than at the mid to later end, right? So I certainly support that. You've got a wonderful superintendent in place right now, who's ready to stay on into next year. So I would look forward to us, reconvening and getting some planning done even in October, and certainly have a search going on by winter break, if not sooner, and having an appointment of a new superintendent no later than February of next year. I think that's really reasonable and gets you at the very front end, and I think that's a positive.
So you would continue on with your background, learning more about SQUIM and what the SQUIM community is looking for and what teachers and board members are looking for. I mean, like I'm scheduled to meet with you on Friday. Yeah. We would still continue with that.
Yeah, I think we stay the course on that. We're ready to do that. We want to learn SQUIM. I don't see any need to delay that. So I'd like to move forward with that with my team this week and next week. And then we'll be in prime shape to move forward with the recruitment whenever you deem that to be right when we come back in the next academic year.
And on a side note, it's almost a requirement to not be able to find the unmute button to be part of this effort. We all can't find the unmute button from time to time.
Thank you for making me feel better. I'm not, I spend a lot of time on Zoom and not a lot of time on Teams, but I should know where the mute button is. So thank you for that gracious comment. I'll do better next time.
All right. Thank you, Hank, for your input there. So with that said, before we go into too much further discussion, I think we've heard from all the board, and we could, so the motion we have on the table is to extend Dr. Prine through next school year through to 2022. And then as stated, we'll work on the contract for the actual contract approval for next board meeting. So With that said, all those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. All right, thank you. And just kind of chiming in myself as well, it has been an absolute pleasure at this point, working with Dr. Prine over the last several months. She's been very active in just, when we called upon her and she volunteered to jump on board, as Director Koo kind of said, and I'll put a little more direct, it was like, we need someone to keep the lights on and just keep us moving while we're going through this. And Dr. Prine kind of stepped in and took more of that on. And then at the point that she became our interim superintendent, she just continued on with that processes. And, as I said, we've had some good feedback from staff and all around them. And I think just overall, based on what we've heard from Hank tonight and the rest of the board, moving forward, I completely agree that, I guess a lot of our first question was, we're going to keep kicking this can down the road. But I think we have an excellent superintendent at this time. We have some timeline and some other issues and concerns that surround the district at this point moving forward. And if our ultimate goal is to find a long-term excellent superintendent, let's let the process happen and continue on with the excellent superintendent that we have in place right now. So those are just my thoughts. Anybody else before this? This is all we have for tonight. Dr. Prine?
Yes, I just want to say thank you for the generous comments tonight. It has been a pleasure to be in the Sequim School District, and I'm looking forward to the next 16 or 17 months, however much time we have together. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Well, if nobody else has anything further for the good of the order, thank you, everyone. Appreciate all the work that's being done. And I know we have some staff on the call today, and I just want to continue thanking you for all the work that you all continue doing with our students. And in the end, just a reminder that that's what we're all here for. We're all here for those little ones and big ones that walk in the door every day. Now, as there's more and more walking through the door, and we've been seeing on screen or not seeing on screen for the last year, and our goals and our duty is to make sure that they're educated. And I want to thank all of you that are here that participate in that. And again, I think we have at this point a good leader to help us keep moving in that direction with our reopen and the rest of the process through this year and through to next year as we look for our long term. So, keep doing all that you do. We really appreciate it from the board, all that you all do. And with that said, everybody have a good evening.